WeatherScope.
A winter storm gave you a raw, wet, windy commute to work this morning in Boston. You had rain heavy at times and temperatures were in the 30s, but the wind chill made it feel like 10 degrees. Good morning, I'm Rick Griffin. Welcome to WeatherScope. The scene in Boston was repeated in many locations in the Northeast this morning, and some of you have seen some heavy, wet snow. Now, with all the details on the situation, let's go to Dan Atkinson in the Forecast Center. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Rick, and thank you. We are watching here in the Forecast Center the continued slow progress northeastward of an intensifying storm which is off the coast of New Jersey and kicking up a lot of wind across not only Boston but back toward New York, and winds somewhat lighter but still rather blustery for you around Philadelphia on toward the nation's capital. Let's look at the satellite radar composite. And you can see as we put it into motion the circulation around the low pressure area, which is actually east of Cape May, New Jersey in the Atlantic and tracking on off toward the northeast. This nor'easter is strengthening as it's out over the waters, and the strongest winds are tending to be reported to the north of the gale center. In fact, at this time, Boston reporting a wind gust of 48 miles per hour. And this storm is going to be, with the slow progress today, continuing to produce windy weather for you across the northeast, also dumping in a lot of Atlantic moisture. In the higher elevations, it's falling as wet snow. This is an elevation event. Not a lot of cold air in place or being brought in from the north, but as the moist air rides in from the Atlantic and rides up the increasing elevations, the moisture is condensing and falling in the form of wet snow in many cases. Light snow for the most part, but we'll show you in a moment some of the areas where some heavier snow has fallen. Well, the wind being generated by this storm center is producing gale warnings from Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina, up to Merrimack River, Massachusetts, and northward then it's storm warnings in effect on toward East Fork, Maine, with the strongest winds along the down east Maine coast, gusting about 55 miles per hour. Also, heavy surf advisories in effect from Fenwick Island, Delaware, down to the North Carolina-Virginia border, and as you can see, coastal flooding is a threat. With the coastal flood warning in effect from Montauk Point, New York to Little Egg Inlet, New Jersey. Now, earlier there was some flooding on Long Island due not to the tides and the high winds, but due to prolonged heavy rain. You woke up to flooded streets in Freeport, New York this morning. Freeport is on Long Island, and it rained all night in your area, and the rain was heavy at times. Rain will continue throughout much of the day. In addition, conditions will be windy and cold. Here's a look now at the current radar showing the area from Boston on down toward the nation's capital. And in most cases, what we're seeing here is light rain in coastal sections with snow falling in the inland areas. Light snow for the most part, but reporting right now some heavy snow at Avoca in Pennsylvania, northeast Pennsylvania. Utica, New York, reporting some moderate snow this hour. Heavy rain falling right now around Norwood and New Bedford, Massachusetts. Boston reporting some moderate rain with winds gusting to 48 miles per hour out of the northeast. Winds coming in out of the northeast into southern New England, coming in generally from the north across Long Island and then from the northwest into Philadelphia and the nation's capital. These winds are incidentally blowing trees down in some cases due to the saturated ground. The roots are simply not holding onto the trees, and one of the damage reports we've received has come in from North Carolina, where Idlewild in Ashe County, Idlewild, North Carolina, just off the Blue Ridge Parkway, has had large trees toppled by gusts to near 55 miles per hour this morning. And you can see the heavier snow forecast in the northeast from the Poconos on up through the Adirondacks and the Catskills and the Berkshires, through the White and Green Mountains on into the mountains of central Maine, and you could easily get better than 6 inches of snow across that region. This storm system is moving into a relatively mild air, but it doesn't feel that way if you're outside and dealing with the wind chill. Wind chill now 22 in New York and 8-degree wind chill in Boston. That's the latest, and if you want to get more information on this storm, we invite you to stay with us. We'll be updating you throughout the day. And now back to the studio where Rick Griffin is standing by to give you the details on what's happening elsewhere across the country and your forecast.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Well, the folks out west are going to see heavy mountain snow, specifically in Arizona, Utah, parts of Nevada. And it is the same storm that brought heavy rain and mudslides to Southern California overnight and this morning. Let's take a look at the result of heavy rain in Laguna Beach, California early this morning. It led to mudslides that buried at least 3 homes and several cars. Rescue crews worked to free a number of people trapped in the debris. 12 people, by the way, have been rescued so far. 2 more, though, are still missing. The rain will taper off today, as you'll see in a moment, but the threat of mudslides continue as the ground is thoroughly saturated. Well, there was heavy rain in the Laguna Beach area last night, a couple of inches, but take a look at the amounts that fell in Beverly Hills, California. 4.05. That's just since Sunday night, and even heavier rains at Mount Wilson, 10.82, and there were a couple of smaller automated observing stations that had even more rain than that, 13 to 14 inches of rainfall since Sunday in the San Gabriel Mountains. And by the way, Los Angeles now, as of 4 o'clock this morning, you have had your wettest February in history, and now the 3rd wettest month ever recorded in Los Angeles. And by the way, the February record stood for 114 years, so it's been a long time since you had that record's been standing for quite some time. Broken this morning, 4 o'clock, 13.3